Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So today's message is going to be combining several different elements that are seemingly unrelated so that we can see the big picture. I started to say what I was inspired by, but the truth is this has been a very long process of just following my interests. And you may have heard a lot of times there's a saying that people use, follow your bliss. And it reminds me of the numinous aspect of this experience, this human experience, where we sometimes find ourselves just feeling like we're called to a particular interest, but we really don't know why. And so we go in this direction and we kind of, tinker around over here and just kind of see what this is about. And then we have a totally different interest over here. And so we head down this way and we look into this and then, keep going, right? Multiply this by however many interests we have. And then over time, what I've found in my life is that a lot of things wind up coming together in ways that I could have never predicted in a million years. And this has happened for me both in my professional life and in my personal life. And so this morning I had some dots, like a major flood of dots connecting at once, and it was beautiful. And I actually started a new playlist that I've made public to share with you all that has a couple of related videos with regards to what we're going to talk about today, and I'm just going to keep adding to that playlist as I find appropriate videos, so that if you have interest also in connecting the same dots that I'm connecting, then you'll have those resources available. And so I'll put the name of the playlist down in the description of this video for you all, okay? But we're going to talk about it today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you enjoy today's presentation. Ultimately, I hope that it's very inspiring and interesting for you and encouraging, and as always, I hope that it gets the wheels turning for you, okay, in your own mind. And so please know that I try to always present all of my information from different viewpoints and lenses, and I just encourage you to take everything that I share with you and just apply your own lens to the information so that it can be beneficial for you. Okay, so this morning, y'all, I have this favorite coffee, and it's amazing, and it's just a small little local coffee shop, but they make this iced coffee in the flavor salted caramel, and it's incredible. It's truly incredible because I don't like things that are overly sweet, and so the salted part of the flavor is just a perfect balance. And so I get in line, and they have great service, and they'll sometimes come out if the line's long and take your order on their iPad. It's just great. I love it. And one of the girl that took my order this morning, she said, have you tried the salted turtle? And I said, no. And she said, well, it's just kind of like a step further, not just the salted caramel, but there's also mocha added in. And I thought, man, that sounds amazing. And so I was really excited about that. But also I was encouraged by that little nugget that she gave me when she said a step further. And see, that's what it requires when you're on the path, when you are a truth seeker, when you're wanting to learn and grow, when you have that kind of mindset and approach to life, that you're humble enough to understand that you don't know everything and that there's always more to learn. I feel like the more you learn, the more there is to learn, and it's exciting. And see, those are the right kind of butterflies, in my opinion, right? And so if you follow your bliss, it'll bless you in ways that you could have never imagined, and I know that from my personal experiences. So I want to open the discussion today by sharing this with you. This was a revelation to me. there's a lot written and discussed on the topic of chaos versus order. And I know that there's so many different ways you can look at this concept, right? But this is the truth that has surfaced for me. And that is, chaos is the lie. Order is the truth. But the key here is that the difference is understanding. And so I just hope that if you can keep this in your mind, everything will come together for you as we wrap up the message and we go through everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves think a little bit today, right? We're going to think a little. And so it's going to be fun, I hope. It was fun for me pulling all this together for you all. What I have learned is that, and a lot of what I'm sharing today, I've shared before with you all, but I just haven't combined all the elements together in this manner. So there's going to be some new things as well, okay? But I have discovered that there are patterns and cycles that are present in this reality everywhere you look, okay? On the macro and the micro scale. Okay, and it just reminds me of the saying, as above, so below. And so when you consider things like, for example, the life-death-life cycles, or cycle, it can be found everywhere. Okay, just like the stories we've read, the experiences that we go through when we go through trauma or we go through challenging or difficult times, we can experience this life-death-life cycle in our personal life. Okay, it's also present in nature. We can easily see it in nature. In societies and civilizations, right? All throughout history, there have been great civilizations that fell, right? So there's cycles present everywhere. Even the narcissistic abuse cycle, when the discard happens, and remember, this can be on the grand scale where someone actually leaves you, or it can be on just repeated, very frequently on a smaller scale where you're discarded, multiple times throughout a day, and it's done in a way where you're just totally disregarded, where they're just leaving the room when you're mid-sentence, things like that. So the discard can be, on a grand scale or a smaller scale. So just think of when you are able to identify patterns and cycles. I just encourage you to expand your mind enough that you're not so zoomed in that you miss everything. So just zoom out and be expanded enough to be able to catch these patterns and cycles on the micro and the macro level, even within your relationships, right? And in your environment, in every aspect of life. Because when a narcissist discards you, then they're going to come back. They're going to, they always think they can come back, right? And it's usually with a love bomb. So it's, again, cycles everywhere. And so let's move forward. Even on the earth, there are cycles with the earth itself, I believe, and also in the cosmos. Okay, so let's continue and let's look at everything a little closer. Consider a building. Okay, is there any way that a building could have been a spontaneous creation? The building in itself is proof of a builder. That's the way I see it. And I actually, I'll drop a link to the channel where I heard this analogy, and I thought it was really cool. So, because I heard this from someone, but it just totally resonated with me. Like, absolutely, this makes sense, right? It's logical. It's logical, and so it makes sense. And I feel like it's the same with creation. That creation is proof of a creator, and there's a Bible verse that illustrates that. All right, but it's only visible when you can see it, when you have the eyes to see, all right, the patterns and the structure. What I've found is there's a beautiful collaboration between seemingly unrelated things, okay? So like we're just busy, we're just going about our lives, and I mean, boy, if you think about it, boy, are we busy. We're super busy with our jobs, with our routines, all of our entertainment, you know, like television and the internet and so many things, right? We're just busy. And so because of that, it's just kind of like a side effect, essentially, that we are not catching how things are actually collaborating and going together and working together. So it's almost like we're unable to see the bigger picture because of our busyness. Okay, so but this is what I have found. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. And it's with regard to patterns and structure and cycles, essentially order in our reality, like on every scale. So I saw this really interesting video, and this was what prompted me to create this playlist, because I was already trying to move these puzzle pieces together, but sometimes you just need this little missing piece. And this person was able to bring in the concept of or the connection between the constellations and characters in myths and stories. And so it just made everything kind of just come right together for me. And what I'm finding is that characters in these stories that I've shared with you, right? And it's just stories everywhere, it seems to be anyway, especially the ones that follow the pattern of the hero's journey, right? Those are the ones that are significant, and the ones that have just stayed with us, with humanity throughout time, throughout different eras and civilizations, and crossed the boundaries of cultures and things like that. Those kind of stories, and you know, folklore and fairy tales and myths and biblical stories and religious stories and things like that. The characters in those stories, this person is proposing the video that I'm going to share with you all, that they are related to the constellations. And you'll see what I mean when you watch the video, if you have interest, okay? And then the hero's journey is critical here. This was a critical piece of the bigger picture through my lens, because the hero's journey, and again, this can be applied at the macro level, I feel like, with regards to cycles concerning the cosmos and the earth, as well as on the micro level in our lives. And I know this because, you know, I've lived it, and I am living it, and I'm able to identify these stages. There are identifiable stages. So the hero's journey illustrates I think you would call it the procession, and gives examples of, even, you know, a lot of people believe that there's validity and meaning behind numbers and dates and time frames. And I find it interesting that when you look at these myths and stories, they all seem to share the same type of time frames too. So that's something you can look into there. I'm not sure if there's significance there or not. It's even in the Bible. It's like, I feel like time frames would not be detailed out if they didn't matter. So I feel like there's significance there, but I'm not sure. And so, I mean, it's even said that there are patterns with regards to time frames within our lives. There's something called the 7-year itch, for example. I'm not very familiar with that. I've just heard of that term, but there's, it's well known that a lot of people go through what they call a midlife crisis. So there's timing that's applied even on the smaller scale within our lives. And so just something to look into there. I have a lot flooding my mind right now. I'm trying to get it out between reading my notes and what's flooding into my mind and sharing it with you all. So hopefully you're getting the gist of what I'm saying. All right. So timetable, stages. It's even been said throughout different cultures that the stars and constellations serve as sort of a astronomical clock even. So this kind of starts to get into, I think, what's called esoteric wisdom or knowledge. And then when you consider that there truly may be intention in creation that manifests as order that we can identify through patterns and cycles that we know are true because we can see it and we are living it. See, it's like that's the proof, right? And so I always found it interesting. I shared with you all that I have a background in art, right? And I wasn't able throughout the years, especially that I was more focused on that, I wasn't able to put it all together, but I just knew that there was meaning, especially in the paintings that had figures, and I'm talking about like in the Renaissance era especially, okay, like around that time frame. There were a lot of very realistic paintings of very, how do I want to call this, shocking or impactful scenes, like stories from the Bible that were painted and things like that. But what really caught my attention as an artist and as an art student was how the characters were positioned, right? Their poses were not usually natural. They were just very exaggerated. Their arms were up and they were twisted, and they would have, a certain number of fingers this way and one this way, and it just and I would think to myself, there has to be meaning there. And then I found out, how it was true that artists commissioned throughout history would intentionally hide meanings that. And it could just even be about politicians, maybe, because they weren't allowed to speak out the truth of what they may know about a certain person in power, for fear of death or punishment of some sort. So they would veil it in the paintings. And that was just incredibly interesting to me, right? And so, but I intuitively knew that there were important messages in these paintings, and I've always had an interest in religion and spirituality, and I just thought one of these days this is going to come together. And so the video that I filmed this morning really kind of helped with that part of the puzzle, right? And then again, I've been on my journey, understanding the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell's work, and that's just kind of painting a bigger picture for me, right? But back during the time when these paintings were made, there were a lot of what they called Renaissance men, and this in itself was very interesting to me, like Galileo and Da Vinci, and essentially they were masters in such various subjects that, again, when you learn about this, they don't seem on the surface to be related at first, right? Like astronomy. I look like one of the figures in the paintings doing this. But astronomy, as well as science and art and music, right? A lot of people understand that there are formulas in music. You can correlate math and music. So it's incredible how there are connections that you don't initially see, right? And here's a key. I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere with this. I am. But there's layers to the meaning behind the content that I'm presenting today, right? Layers of importance to us, I feel like. So the thing is, depending on how you feel at any given time will dictate if you are in the right state of mind to connect important dots. It's so true. That's why we have to keep guard over our mental state, our thoughts. We're instructed to do that in the Bible. But especially our state, right? If we are rattled, if we are triggered, we are now in a state of preservation. It's like what's it called? Like an innate, like a wild animal, right? An instinctive state of self-preservation when we are triggered. Even if it's psychological, it works that way too. It's not just physical predators. It's also psychological predators that trigger us, right? But the reason that we get stuck and caught up in this and stay stuck for so long is because we're made to believe that it's our fault, when in reality there are mechanisms even within our own mind that are working properly to preserve our sanity, that it's used against us. And so wisdom truly is the principal thing. And I love how the Bible explicitly differentiates and states, and wisdom is the principal thing, and with all of your getting, so we're instructed to get wisdom, but with all of your getting, get understanding. So understanding is a key piece. And the thing is, in order to get that understanding, which is essentially connecting dots, right? The wisdom, I view, is like obtaining the puzzle pieces. You have to work to get those too. It's a lot of work. You have to knock, you have to seek to find, you have to knock for the door to be open. It's not going to fall in your lap. You have to want it. And so wisdom, I view as the puzzle pieces. Understanding is when they come together. And so it's essential that you strengthen that gatekeeper role of your psyche, and you're able to identify people who, with bad intentions, who are attempting to intentionally trigger you into an emotional state that can get out of your control, right? Because if you can identify it when it comes to the gate, then you're not going to let it in, right? And so again, it's crucial because depending on how you feel will dictate if understanding can take place or not, right? That's why they trigger our emotions, so that we can't connect the dots and realize what they're doing to us. But I'm also expanding this to say that we're also not connecting dots on other important things in our lives and in this reality, right? We're missing out on so much. There's a ministry I came across at some point, and if I can find it, I'll drop it. I think I know which one it is. I'll drop a link in the description. But the tagline of this ministry, or maybe this is what it's called, is Setting Captives Free. Maybe that's even the name of a book. I'm thinking that may actually be the name of a book. Possibly both. I'll have to look, but I'll share it with you when I find it below. And if you just kind of think on that concept right there, setting captives free, right? When someone is under mind control, in other words, you're the naive, unknowing, unaware victim held captive in a psychologically abusive relationship, right? Where you're not able to identify it because you haven't gotten the wisdom prior to getting entangled, then this person is going to appear innocent a lot of times, right? The thing is, I truly believe that narcissists and people that have bad intentions, villains of all kinds, right, never win in the end. They don't. And if you look at these stories, these myths, it's the same thing. They don't win in the end. Good always prevails, right? Whether you're talking about religious concepts or folklore, fairy tales, things like that, myths, okay? And so I want you to take this concept of good prevailing in the end, which through the religious lens, you might think of this as the rapture, right? Just scale this down and understand that with wisdom and understanding, we can set ourselves free also on a smaller scale cycle within our own lives. But it takes work, okay? And I want you to think about those that are stuck with a controller, right? People that you may know that you haven't been able to see for a long time because they're being isolated. They're made to feel guilty for spending time with their family or friends. You miss people like that. You miss them a lot. But you can see what they can't see. And you can't make them see it. That's the problem. They have to wake up on their own and see the situation that they're in. Okay? Someone told me once, at a critical point in my life, she said, "No one's coming to save you." And in the moment, it didn't make logical sense to me because I wasn't in the right state to be able to connect the dots and comprehend the message. But eventually, once I worked on this, and a lot of times the first step to do that is through your emotions. And you can't deny your emotions. You have to feel them to release them, right? They're never going to be released until they are acknowledged first and honored, you might say. And so I just encourage you. I'm not sure what stage you might be in if you are or have been entangled with a controlling, psychologically abusive person, manipulative person, any kind of toxic situation. But the very first step, even if you don't understand, you're going to feel the feelings. They're in there. So I just encourage you to feel those feelings, because what I experienced was when you feel the feelings and you honor them and you release them, see, now you've shifted into a different state of awareness. You've gifted yourself with peace, and it's only, even if it's just more peace, maybe there's still more to attain down the road, but you've moved into a state of more peace. And so because of that, you've honored your feelings, you've released the feelings, right? Think of it like a river. You can't dam it up and keep them from flowing. When you're in this more calm state, which you can achieve in the moment if you are intentional with your breathing, counting to 5 and breathing slowly helps too, right? But bringing yourself into this place of peace is a way to regiment yourself so that the dots will connect. And then as the dots connect, it's validating on some level that you can't quite identify at first. And then as you continue to release more emotions, honor and release and feel and release more emotions, then more dots connect. And it's just until you realize the big picture. And so people who are stuck with a controlling person, I used to console myself this way when I, thinking about people that I care about, friends or family members, that you may know. You may console yourself by saying, well, it's their choice. It's their choice to stay in that relationship. But is it their choice if they're not aware? Because see, how can you make an educated choice when your mind is not operating properly or helpfully? Is that a word? Helpfully? I think you see my point here, right? So just really important there. Because being in a state capable of connecting dots, I now view as our lifeline. It is. And so I just encourage you to think on that and let that sink in. All right, I also encourage you to think about what it's costing you not only to be caught up in a controlling relationship, but also if all of your time is focused on trying to make sense of something illogical. Let's say you've exited a toxic situation yourself, okay, but you're trying to make sense of it. I fully believe that you can't apply logic to something that is illogical. You just can't. It's incompatible. These people live a life of lies. I would encourage you not to subscribe to it. You don't have to subscribe to what they're trying to push onto you as the ultimate truth. You can let that be their truth, right? You're not going to fix them. You're not going to change them. A controlling person has made that choice. I mean, here's the thing. Again, I mentioned before, we all have an unconscious part of our psyche, and you may, when you're still enmeshed in a bad situation, you may make excuses for a person by saying they're unaware of their actions, their unconscious behaviors, and that may be true to a degree, but a lie is a choice, regardless. So when a person lies, they know they're lying. I encourage you not to subscribe to that falsehood that they're trying to promote as truth when there's red flags everywhere, right? And again, you can't apply logic to something illogical. And remember that lying is synonymous with chaos, right? Now, imagine trying, I'm going to go back to the reference of constructing a building. Imagine trying to construct a building with faulty materials. Let's say the building looks good. It doesn't look chaotic. It's built. But the place where the builder sourced the materials had a bunch of workers that they just didn't want to have to, work for their paycheck. They just, kind of people want to sit around and ask people to buy all their stuff, right, for them. So when they're at work, they're very bitter and they just don't care, and so they're just throwing the materials together in a way that, might pass inspection, but it's not going to hold up or something like that. So that kind of a building is not going to last. It's not going to last. I just want you to think about time as your greatest asset. Because here's the thing, consider what amazing opportunities you will be afforded once you stop investing in chaos. And what do I mean by investing? I mean your time, right? All this time that we spend, or I say we, I know I can say I've spent talking about aligning ourselves with our inner guiding light. What does that mean? I believe if we make the paradigm shift in our minds, in our hearts, that order is the way, the path, then we'll cultivate a natural tendency to disregard chaos altogether. It will truly become irrelevant, and we won't even have to put any effort into that, right? But it has to start with a paradigm shift, which can't happen until you've had understanding, which can't happen until you've regimented yourself, that you've taken control of your emotions. So it's like a chain reaction, you know? If we're able to do this, this will afford us the time to invest in the right things. And I just, I encourage you to identify the things that bring you peace, what activities bring you peace, and spend more time there. Any way that you can start by creating that peaceful state for yourself is going to allow all of those puzzle pieces that you've obtained through your life experiences, or that the wisdom you've heard from others, that was shared from others. If you put yourself in a peaceful situation, then it's going to help you to connect dots and to see all the patterns and the cycles, and it's just going to further validate this concept of order as being the way and the truth. I have just found that chaos, it's almost like your reality is what it is to you. You perceive your reality based on your state at the time. And so it can certainly feel and seem chaotic, but understanding has really brought me a lot of clarity. And so for me, I love to be outside. The great outdoors can absolutely bring you a lot of peace. You can see a lot of patterns and cycles in nature too. And so I encourage you to identify the things that bring you peace. And I just hope that the material I presented today has gotten the wheels turning for you. I hope that you're able to connect some dots and therefore manifest a beautiful reality for yourself. So thanks so much for coming along today. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.